as we sit in our traditional places today, or in places that we call home in Los Angeles County, it's important to take note to the ancestral territory that we're living upon. Being indigenous or not, if you're a youth or an adult or an elder, take time to recognize the first peoples, the peoples that had inhabited these lands for centuries, and understand their culture and history. We occupy their spaces, or you come in these spaces. For my tribe and lineages, we've been pretty much become homeless, in the sense that we lost our lands to call home. They were taken from us, and not because we didn't want them, it was because we were forced off. So to acknowledge the first people, it brings their voice back. It gives power to the voiceless. Acknowledging them, and if we're doing it through music or songs, pay tribute and homage to them. Either before music comes on or a song comes up that you're going to sing or perform, or incorporate it into your music itself, so that it brings voice again to the voiceless, the folks that has very small voice.
I know people have liked to be entertained across all time, right? But there's a point where like music is beyond entertainment. Like it's a mechanism for change. It's a practice for um, betterment, for your own betterment. It's so much more. So I think I'll just leave it at that.
The role of music, I can just share with you the experiences I've had with it, and what it's been. It's sometimes a an accelerator for learning language and stories at the same time, and connection specific to where you are. But definitely, you start to hear the songs, and then in the language, once you're learning to speak it, if you haven't been around the language or had a chance to learn it generationally, it'll accelerate that. But it gives you that connection, and we're going to speak to the ancestors who need to speak to them in the language that our ancestors spoke, and that's out of respect, and then to build that connection.
We're looking to acknowledge also the music of this land that's indigenous to here, so that there's a connection. We're bridging communities, we're bridging understandings. So this is something I think that I've dealt with in my life, because I have my Mexicano background and my upbringing in the Nahua music and that tradition, and cocherismo and stuff like that. And I've also done work to investigate and learn about California indigenous roots, especially Gabrielino instruments. So it's been a long journey for me in trying to bridge those two things. Like basically, part of me wants to look to um, try to find a solution, a way to um, negotiate them, rectify them, but that never happens because it's a dual cultural understanding, right? There's no midpoint. They just kind of meld in some way, for me. So that's an interesting thing, and yeah, a lot of our instruments that are original are in collections, either private or museum. And as a person from a group of people who's not federally recognized, we don't have the same access to those things, as other people. Like for example, somebody with a degree, an archaeologist, or somebody from a federally recognized tribe, right, or something like that. And I've run into that in the past already, many times. So that's kind of the struggle. It's out there, but it's like, how do you get to it? And I dealt with that for a long time, and I finally realized it's not in their hands. It's out here. This is where the music originates here, a place like this. You know, our music originates here from the land, from the sticks of the elderberry tree. It originates from the bones of the birds that we might see around here. Those bird relatives, the sky people, that have lived here for forever. Whether it's a pelican or an eagle or a hawk. But those that I know of in the Gabrielino tradition, that's our original wind instruments, are the elderberry flutes, the cane flutes, and the bird whistles, and bird flutes, those type of instruments.
And as far as like the instruments we use, the clapper stick is actually one of the older and would be one of the most, I would say, traditional. The gourds today are traditional in this modern time, but it's been adopted in. So what was before that? Why would the gourd have been something that generationally we might have recognized? Well, because we had We had similar rattles, but they were made out of like if you're coastal, they could be out of a shell, sea urchin. They more inland may have been just two pieces of wood covered with a deer hide and encompassing a stick down the center, and then just small seeds or stone.
So that's what I do. You know, when I play my music, it's kind of interesting because the way Americans think of it, it's entertainment, right? But the way I think of it is very different. It's I'm becoming who I really am, and I'm showing myself for who I really am, and I'm I'm singing to the land. I'm not really singing to those people. I think it's funny that they think that, you know.
As we look deeper, though, like I'm finding that geographically, it was more diverse. We went through a period where I think it was just recognizable. There's, the gourd rattle, there's a clapper stick, maybe a drum had been adopted. But as we dig deeper now, we start to see that there's more richness in the geographic areas. We're seeing changes in the instrument.
Today in Los Angeles, we have town areas and cities in the county that are called San Fernando, Los Angeles, Calabasas. But traditionally, these places had certain names. The village I come from, descend from, is a Situcanga, which is in Encino, and it means place of the oak. And on top of that, Encino is the Spanish word for oak tree. So there's some similar names that incorporate to them, but taking a pause to understand that history and culture. And I heard many times, like the word Tahanga, Bocoima, that's Spanish words, but in reality, those are our native words. So there's a lot of native presence, and words are still around, and it's powerful to acknowledge their existence and where they originated from. So Bocoima means the entrance in our language. Baco means enter, that's just the root word of Bocoima. Tahanga means the old woman, place of old woman. So it's important. And for us, even Coenga means the place of the hill. So all these words take time to learn and understand them. And even for us as Native people, there's different translations for it. Word doesn't simply just mean from my tribe what it means, but the neighboring tribe, it can be slightly different. And understand that these are different cultures as well. So my neighbors to my tribe is Gabalino Tongva, or Gabalino Quiche, or Gabalino. And those different ancestral names are names that they chose or picked for themselves, but Gabalino was given to them, as Fernandino was given to us. And we were called Fernandinos for the simple fact that we were taking the mission San Fernando and baptized. So we still embrace those names because that's part of our history. It's history that is true and factual and became who we are, part of what we are, but we remember our ancestral villages, which is pure and true to our ancestral ties. So I advise that you learn more about the tribes and the communities and the villages that they represent.
And when I'm out there on these places, curiously, I don't go specifically to gather, but I quite often run into things that I'll use in my artistry, right? My instrument making or other things, that I'm making to shape how I think about my own culture. Because basically, what we have to do is recreate our culture.
Yeah, we'll share with you our history. We'll share with you our past. But see us now.
And so that's a part of it, but the other part is also the human relevance, the human trajectory of the Gabrielinos here on this land that developed that music. Because the instruments alone are just a testament, like to our existence, right? Our ancestral times being here, but they don't really. It takes the human to make them, I guess, relevant to other humans. So somebody has to play them, and that hasn't happened. It's part of the strategy of the Spanish was to erase and do away with all those traditions. As the Gente de Razón entered Los Angeles, they looked at the native people as a backwards, wrong people, almost like animals, who were not sophisticated. And I can go on and on. I won't. But we know that none of that's true. We know that they didn't have a clear understanding of what was going on here. And generations later, we're left here to kind of, those of us that can or want to sort through everything that happened, right? Sort through the why and the how and all that stuff. And it's led to a lot of, conflict and sometimes some situations, misunderstandings, or just straight ignorance, straight lack of culture. Basically, the product of erasure is to have people out there who are perfectly assimilated and not aware or capable of conducting their culture, conducting themselves in a cultural way.
We lost our language. In our family here, the last speaker was my great grandfather. Also my grandfather. And we gotta be patient and understanding and caring, because many people were stripped away from their cultural families, from their tribal families. And then they come back and relearn, and then when they relearn, they're learning from academic folks that are settlers. And learn from a story that they kind of lived. So when you're re-indigenizing, and that's the careful part that we're careful about, because if you gone out and learned, you say, yeah, this is who I am, then I said, well, my family's always been connected, and I have to give you a little bit more truth to that. That's not entirely everything. This is the truth. And some people get devastated, and some folks are like, well, I always thought this what it was. I said, no, here's the correct information. So it has to be dealt with delicacy, because we don't want to discourage people from re-indigenizing themselves. And we don't want people to say, well, that's all, every time I try to get in there, it's like I'm always being told no.
The greatest part of music was always the voice, and the way, and that in itself is deep, because how you speak and how you sing could vary depending on kind of residency.
There's other layers to it, like there's other layers to it that are not easily explainable, like our rhythm with the universe, right? Like us being in harmony with our destiny, our life, our universe, the world we live in, the air. And when I say that, I mean being in the same rhythm with it, and some of that comes from being at peace with yourself, right? When you live in a constant struggle with yourself, you can't ever be in harmony with nothing, not even your own family, nothing. I figured out that in our work, in my work, I made the decision that the children are the best investment.
Yeah, because if we only live backwards, our culture is dead. We have to live forward. So we have to be today the stories that our descendants are going to tell.
Yeah, it's really the mechanism to, in music, to transform yourself, not just like in action, but also your temperance. How it, you know, um, people call it musical therapy, but it's just a medium, right? Something we do to kind of transform, if you do it right, how you feel, right? Because we can't always control or dumb down or numb our sentiments, right? We're meant, intended to have sentiments. They're cues inside of us, right? And when you ignore it enough, you know what you become. You become one of these persons that hurt people, right? That just hurts in return. It goes on and on. But when you're able to change it and deal with it, because it's going to keep coming, they're going to keep coming at you with things, even if you're a do-gooder, they're still going to come at you with stuff, people. So you have to figure out how to, take all that stuff and make medicine out of it. That's what the music is, to transform yourself. Why? Because everybody's westernized, everybody's modernized, and we're pushed in that direction constantly, by media, by social protocols, and unless we choose to recognize and act a different way. So that's part of what we have to contend with, and also use as an explanation for why nobody can talk about this really, like in detail, right? So there's the anthropology of the music, right? Within the culture. So, and I'm just talking about today, what we're dealing with. But the real the real medicine of it all comes from understanding that the ancestors didn't intend for us to be living this way. They didn't want us to, and that's my thought. They didn't ever want their grandkids and all that to be living through all of this, right? So they could never know, the type of damage and inhumanity that the settlers are capable of, And so that's what part of the medicine, and then part of understanding that, right? Understanding that like I said, we're left just carrying the baggage of history. That's where we are today.
What is your advisement as regional caretakers to the youth?
Well, I would say that to hear us, because the experience we have here in caretaking and having a relationship with these mountains is deep.